Dr. Kushner, we also want to tell you all bridges and tunnels obviously closed at this point.
Right.
Obviously, this is a preemptive strike to secure what they can secure for the police department, the terrorism squad. The Office of Emergency Management, what do they do in situations like this when it is absolute chaos?
Well, we played tabletop exercises. We painted scenarios. We went through scenarios of these types of events happening with a biological weapon. But I know of none that has taken really seriously the possibility of attack by aircraft.
The planes never veered, did they? The jets just went right into it.
The second one, we heard the first one and seen everything flying out of the building. And the second one, we actually seen run right into the building. It came right from behind the building and ran right into the other side of the first tower, the further one down.
It's a terrible question, but what are you thinking about when you're looking at something like that?
I'm telling you, we ran because stuff was flying everywhere. It's the scariest thing in my life.
And that's...
Never seen anything like it. Never seen anything like it, man.
And your name, sir?
Sean O'Neill. Still tell my wife I'm all right.
Larry, I wanted to ask you, all morning that correspondents have also been saying, particularly Bob Kerr and Jim Miklaszewski, that there was and Andrea Mitchell, no warning attached to this event. Right. Generally speaking, do we get some kind of, do U.S. officials, government agencies get some kind of warning from a particular group, or is this pretty, fairly typical in terms of an event happening without any foreshadowing?
No, Katie, this unfortunately is typical. It's only in the movies that you get the advanced warnings.
Now, you were there when this happened.
Yes, we were right
Why did you stop up here in Soho and then turn around and look at it?
You just have to see what happens.
First time we turn around and look.
We're just running from there. I mean,
First to run for safety, basically.
Yeah.
Get out of there.
And I don't know why. There's a whole bunch of people driving now for someone down there, just blocking the fire trucks and everything. We were trying to clear the streets and let fire trucks go through. And
it's a madhouse down there.
It's a madhouse.
That's really a good point to New Yorkers who may be watching us, however they're watching or listening to us right now, is to try to get out of that area to let the emergency crews do what they need to do. Because there are clearly people still trapped up there, and firefighters and emergency crews still need to do a lot of work.
And then occasionally, passing by us now, Commissioner Carrick, and you won't have any time for me.
The question is, let me put you on.
Say again, Steve.
Let me talk to Jim Dolan here for one moment. Stay with us.
It's nothing like I've ever seen. Nothing like anybody here in New York has ever seen either. That's the scene here from Prince and Worcester Street, and we'll talk to some other people as time goes on.
Joe, you are not close enough to... Okay, apparently Joe cannot hear us, so thank you, Joe. We appreciate that.
Manhattan has been sealed off. The Hudson River bridges and the tunnels have been sealed. Clearly, there is an attempt right now to thwart any further act of terrorism, act of violence against the people of Manhattan. So Manhattan is in a lockdown. We've heard that phrase used in school shootings. We've heard that phrase used in jailbreaks. I can't recall ever having that phrase used with regard to a city the size of Manhattan. But Manhattan is in a lockdown. It is sealed off. The Hudson River bridges, the tunnels, the east side, the west side, the north, the south, of course we are an island here in Manhattan, has been sealed off. One can only guess that the U.S. Armed Forces is now in a state of high alert to prevent any planes or any other vehicular traffic in the air from impacting anywhere in Manhattan on civilian targets. We are a city under siege right now, and the United States of America is warding off any further terrorist threats on the city of Manhattan. John?
Debris is still drifting miles from the scene as we look at the effects there of two airplanes crashing into the World Trade Center. The first one from witnesses was a small, according to eyewitnesses, a small plane, apparently, a twin engine possibly, or a boat. And then we had another report that it might have been a 737, and then CNN reporting
that one plane, apparently an American Airlines 767 from Boston. That according to CNN.
Joseph, how do you proceed from here?
Well, clearly, when this particular tragedy and criminal act became clear, the FBI, as well as all of the other national security resources, are going to be pooled immediately to identify, is there any other immediate threat? Right now, I think the city is probably taking its best effort now to do a lockdown of sorts. If the intention of these terrorists is clearly to disrupt the American public, well, they have in fact succeeded.
Jim, if a third plane is indeed, and this is certainly speculation, on its way, what would be the plan of attack? Would you take that plane out before it got to that point?
They're making those decisions as they go. There may not be another a plan in place for this kind of a situation. The question may be, what's its target? What is its target? Is it going for the World Trade Center again, or is there some other building? Joe, what I'm curious about, Joe, are you with us?
Joe? Thank you.
Joe Torres.
Hello, I'm sorry, Jim.
Hey, Joe, let me just ask you about this third plane, the possibility of this third plane. Have they spotted this plane? Do we know?
Listen to video. Sorry, Glenn. Sorry, Jim.
That's okay. Joe, do we know if they've actually seen this third plane or whether there was a phone call in that warned of a third plane? Do you know where that information comes from?
No, I was standing next to an officer as he related to FBI agents who were coming out of their offices located here in Lower Manhattan. I just saw Commissioner Carrick. Could you just see if you
Well, I'm sure there's no question that if they have information that there is a third plane, they have taken every precaution possible, and I would not want to be a plane in this coverage area, in this area right now, flying in a place they should not be flying.
Then on top of that, this is going to have a psychological effect on people living in New York City that is going to be beyond belief. You're going to think of the shock that people who witnessed this firsthand will live in the area in the upcoming days. No matter how this turns out, if it turns out to be an act of terrorism, even worse. But even if it turns out to be an accident, the psyche of New Yorkers after September 11th, it'll never, ever be the same. And it's going to be very difficult to recover, normalcy after an event such as this. It goes beyond what we, those of us who report in the media and yourself have seen or could conjure up. You want to pinch yourself and say, is this really happening?
One possibly being hijacked, and whether or not someone could be in that third.
Joe?
Yeah, no, again, it was strictly radio information from a quite energized police officer who got information relayed to him to take precautions. I don't know how that information came across, if it was information over a radio, if it was actually an eyewitness or another officer in another location, but I'm sure police are certainly manning all radio frequencies, but again, how that information came across, Jim, I couldn't tell you, because it was more here for the people here, a precautionary measure to just get out of the way.
One of the enormous difficulties about terrorism, everybody knows, is that you almost immediately get a claim of responsibility, and you may get several, and people's suspicions get ramped up given the obvious nature of people who they think or know are involved in terrorism around the world. There has been a claim of responsibility, according to the Reuters news agency, made to Abu Dhabi television in the Persian Gulf from something called the Palestinian DFLP. The Palestinian DFLP is something called the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine. It has been for many, many years one of the most militant of the Palestinian organizations, has been involved in violence before, has been involved in other actions before, and it is the first organization to claim responsibility for this, though we have to caution you in all the obvious ways that before the day is over, there may be any number of people who claim responsibility.
Beverly, what did you see exactly?
All right, I saw the second plane. My cat woke me up for the first fire. She was hysterical, so I came to the window to see why, because that's where she was running, and I saw the first fire. And a few minutes later, I don't know exactly, I saw this plane that looked blue and red. My eyesight's not great,
No.
so don't
worry. Another eyewitness described the plane as blue and red as well.
Hold it, Mr. Jenkins. We're looking. There are two jets right now approaching the World Trade Center. We're watching. Hold on. I'm sorry, no. The one aircraft is cleared. We can't tell whether it was a plane or a chopper from our vantage point. I apologize, Mr. Jenkins.
No, that's okay. And realize that this is an extraordinary circumstance where apparently these planes appear to have been hijacked in some way or taken the control over them, and it basically must have been a suicide mission. Most of these aircraft accidents, when you look at them, most pilots can, tell what really happened very quickly, even though the reports take a long time to come out. But the controllers, let's say the controllers that are actually controlling the airliners...
Richard, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. I apologize to you, Richard, but we have another development. Thank you very much for your assistance. I appreciate it. Dick Oliver?
Yes, Jim.
Can you hear me? Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Katie, I don't want to alarm anybody right now, but apparently it felt just a few moments ago like there was an explosion of some kind here at the Pentagon. We're on the E-ring of the Pentagon. We have a window that faces out toward the Potomac, toward the Kennedy Center. We haven't been able to see or hear anything after the initial blast. I just stepped out in the hallway. Security guards were herding people out of the building, and I saw just a moment ago as I looked outside, a number of construction workers who have been working here have taken flight. They're running as far away from the building as they can right now. I hear no sirens going off in the building. I see no smoke, but the building shook for just a couple of seconds. The windows rattled, and security personnel are doing what they can momentarily to clear this part of the building. Again, I have no idea whether it was part of the construction work, whether it was an accident, or what is going on. We're going to try to find those details and get them to you as soon as possible. But interestingly enough, one intelligence official here in the building said when he saw what appeared to be the coordinated attack on the World Trade Center, his advice was to stay away from the outside of the building today, just in case.
Jim, I can tell you now that the police for the last several minutes have been evacuating all of lower Manhattan. I'm standing at the foot of City Hall Park, and as I see people being screaming out of the lower Manhattan area, I'm looking down Broadway, and they're encouraged, move please, please move. And they're moving them north towards the up Broadway and towards the Brooklyn Bridge. So virtually all of lower Manhattan is being evacuated at this time. All people except for emergency personnel are being asked to leave the area.
Oliver, that may tie in with another, I must emphasize, unconfirmed report that we have that there is yet another plane on its way.
And there is a plane circling the White House at the moment, and they're clearing the grounds there. That's a report which may be misleading in that it may presume an attack, whereas we just discovered a moment ago that what we had with an additional airplane in New York airspace was a security operation.
But having seen one go plow in for a second time, we're a little bit wary. Go ahead, I apologize.
We are breaking into the special live coverage of what's happening at the World Trade Center in New York to tell you about something going on right here at the Pentagon. You are looking at both pictures. The smoke that you see on the left-hand side of your screen is right here in the Washington area at the Pentagon.
Let me interrupt you here. Senator Kennedy is speaking in Washington as, again, one of the planes was hijacked from Boston. Perhaps we can hear the senator now.
We underline the point that it is postponed. We are not going to see the business of America deferred because of terrorism, whether it's in education or in another area of public policy. We're looking forward to hearing from the First Lady on a subject matter which is of central concern to all families in this country. And because of her experience and her leadership, this committee and the Congress and the American people would have benefited greatly from her comments. And we will look forward to an early...
Senator Ted Kennedy in Washington.